Hello guests, it's the host and welcome to the Silent Lounge. And today I'm doing something different with the channel. I'm going to be reacting to comments that I've been getting on my Killing Floor videos. This is going to be comments from the Killing Floor community. And ever since I started covering this topic, I've been getting a lot of comments from the Killing Floor community on what they want Killing Floor 3 to be and their general thoughts and opinions on Killing Floor 3. So I thought that it would be fun to pretty much just do this video, just read the comments and react to them and just add my own consensus to them. And we'll see if this will become a thing. Without further ado, let's read some comments. So this comment is from CJ Sayers 3346 and it reads, I hope they fail at this point. I don't really care if the company is trying to walk back their bullshit. The fact is, Embracer Group and Tripwire were more than happy to try and ship a shit-tier Killing Floor flavored acid flip. They're in it for the money now. The only reason changes are being made is because the entire community practically revolted. We'll get a fresh coat of paint and just enough polish for the marketing department to sell, but it'll just be bare minimum they think is necessary to sell the game. Just like what they delivered in the beta, Killing Floor 3 is dead, long live Killing Floor 2. Sadly, what they are saying is true about the gaming industry. Many publishers are getting away with stuff like this by injecting live service models and anti-consumer practices that hurt the player base. That is one of the main reasons why I stopped playing Call of Duty. Activision demands AAA prices like $70 for a Call of Duty game, yet they are unfinished and half-baked. Even though Killing Floor 3 is $40, it should still be a finished product at launch. I don't think it's fair to dismiss Killing Floor 3 entirely because they are showing improvements to enemy AI, animation, the overall tone and mood of the maps, and they said that they're going to fix the gunplay, which I hope they do relatively soon, and who knows, maybe they might change the characters to fit with the mood of the game. Tripwire is listening, and that is something we should take into account. That's just me. I'm not trying to convince anyone to buy this game because I genuinely understand most people's criticisms towards it and their sentiments towards supporting games like this that just completely ignore the fan base. Lately, the gaming industry has been changing for the worse. Many developer studios are shutting down because of asinine decisions like this, where they try to chase a trend to make money rather than make a good game. I think it's good that the Killing Floor community put their foot down and say, no, we're not going to support this product. And I think it's good that Tripwire listened and they're trying to make changes to accommodate for that. I think this is a very powerful practice that people need to practice, which is voting with your wallet. And it brings change. People don't think that it does, but it really does. That's the only way that these publishers listen, is with money. That's all they're interested in. It's money. They're like moths to a flame. It's the money that they're attracted to. And as soon as we say that we're not going to pay for this game because of X, Y, and Z, they're going to try to change X, Y, and Z to get our money. It's simple. So I agree with what this person's saying about the industry. However, I'm not going to fully dismiss Killing Floor 3 because I want to see what changes they can make. And so far, they seem to be making progress, and there's still no set release date for this game. So hopefully we'll see Killing Floor 3 be at the place that it needs to be an enjoyable Killing Floor experience. Here's another comment from DinonSpace8620. I never seen Killing Floor 1 gameplay. That area was eerie as hell, and they should definitely add a hallway system like that again. But I also truly just don't care for the hero aspect. I can suck it up and deal with it because the second game was more class-based. I like being able to play a role, but if the character I have to play with is annoying, then frowny face. When I made my first Killing Floor 3 video, which was my first impressions on the beta, I got many comments telling me how great the first Killing Floor was. So I decided to re-download it and play it, and I was blown away by how good the game was. The atmosphere and ambiance were the highlights of Killing Floor 1, and it's sad that Killing Floor 3 didn't have the same kind of dread created by the environment and mood. I'm genuinely surprised by how well Killing Floor 1 holds up in 2025. The specialist in Killing Floor 3 doesn't bother me either, but I want to be able to choose what perk I want. It doesn't make sense to change a feature that was present in the previous games. The only logical conclusion I can come up with is that Tripwire wanted to sell skins and add new characters, so they locked the perks with the characters to make them unique. I'm honestly glad they will revert the perk system to what it was in the previous Killing Floor games. However, it should be there at launch, not added eventually during the game's life cycle. This comment is from Mr. Nobody 12, and they said, "Those weapons need a complete redo with animations and designs. I need more modern looking guns, not Apex Legends weapons." Part of the charm of the previous Killing Floor games is that they had a variety of everything. They had science fiction weapons, they had realistic weapons, and then they had melee weapons and just silly weapons. I really like when Killing Floor had a mix of everything, because it just showed how unique it was compared to all the other horde shooter games that were coming out during that time, like Left 4 Dead. Left 4 Dead had realistic guns in a sense, and Black Ops Zombies had like era piece weapons mixed in with science fiction weapons, and Killing Floor had weapons from all different generations on top of science fiction weapons. And again, that's what makes Killing Floor so unique, is that it's kind of like a sandbox for whatever weapon that you think you want, or whatever weapon that you're thinking of. You can find it within the trader pod, and that's one of the things that I love about Killing Floor the most, is that it has such a huge variety in weapons, and the gunplay is by far one of the greatest gunplay feeling games that I've played in a long time. I think by adding more modern weapons can help Killing Floor 3 a lot, because although the game takes place in a cyberpunk future, it would help the game in terms of realism by having period weapons like an M1911 or the Dragon's Breath shotgun or a Tommy gun. Just like put some cool stuff in there to have people play around with. Like, you can have your science fiction futuristic weapons, but give the player more to choose from than just Nerf blasters. It would make sense that this military is just using all the weapons that it can muster, all the weapons that is just lying around and what's available. So why not just throw in some modern guns or some guns from the 50s or 40s? Just add whatever you can. Make this game unique. Don't just make futuristic, fake-looking weapons, because it's not going to help the overall aesthetic of this game, since this game is trying to go for a more cyberpunk horror aesthetic. The guns just don't do it justice, and I believe by adding more modern weapons, it will help it a lot. This comment is from Mercer Winter 0416, and they say, "Your video just shows you have no idea how the development of a game works. Generally speaking, in the game, almost always listening to your players is the wrong choice as a gamer myself, because all you are hearing from is the loud ones who are usually a minority, not the majority." There's a lot to unpack with this comment. First of all, what I know and don't know about how a game is developed is irrelevant, because what I'm discussing is not about how the game is made. It's about what the fans want in a Killing Floor game. I agree with you about how always listening to the players can be the wrong choice when developing games. However, that is not what is happening with Killing Floor 3. It's actually the inverse. Tripwire chose not to listen to its core demographic, and it resulted in a lot of backlash. This isn't a crowd of 6 to 7 people screaming that the game isn't what they want. This is the whole fan base saying, "No, we will stick with Killing Floor 1 and 2. Thanks anyway." That's the whole reason why Tripwire is walking back on the decision to lock the perks behind Specialist and change the gameplay to be more in line with the franchise. I don't understand how you can mistake the fan base for being the minority when they have supported the previous games for years and would have supported Killing Floor 3 if it was the game that they were expecting. If this was an original IP that was starting out, then I would understand where you're coming from, but this is not an original IP. Killing Floor is an IP that has a fan base that expects the newest installment to have the same formula that the previous entries had, or the same type of identity that makes it Killing Floor. Killing Floor 3 doesn't have an identity because it's trying to please everyone. It is trying to please the live service hero shooter crowd while also trying to please the Killing Floor fan base by masking their live service hero shooter with the Killing Floor name. Tripwire could have called this game anything but Killing Floor, and they wouldn't have faced as much backlash as they did. But they didn't. They wanted to attach this game with a familiar IP to rake in the Killing Floor fanbase and people outside the fanbase to cash in on a trend. I can't find a single person that has said they liked Killing Floor 3. Most of the first impressions I have watched have been mixed to negative, with most of the complaints being aimed at how poorly the game runs and how it doesn't feel like a Killing Floor game. I think this is a prime example of what happens when you ignore your core audience and try to cash in on a trend that is dying out. The fanbase won't support your new game, and the outsiders won't care because they have other games to play. Nobody wins and everybody loses. This comment is from Hiran Maciel 7980, and they say, nah, this game need to get back to the roots, be an authentic survival horror like the first one, not another soulless hero shooter with cracked movement. Less is more. The new guns are boring and generic. Zeds are generic and just techie for the sake of it. Maps are just futuristic and a generic asset. They need to be scrapped. This is not Killing Floor anymore. I agree with what they're saying. I think they need to go back to their roots and analyze what made the previous Killing Floor games great. I believe the previous Killing Floor game, Killing Floor 2, had amazing weapons, a good variety of weapons. Science fiction, modern, classic. I think they should take a page from Killing Floor 2 and try to adapt what Killing Floor 2 had. Try to port some of the guns from Killing Floor 2 to Killing Floor 3. For example, bring in some classic pistols like the M1911 or the Desert Eagles. They can bring back the combat shotgun. Just some really fun guns to have, because so far Killing Floor 3 doesn't have any fun guns. They have guns that are interesting, I guess, but they don't really pack a punch. I believe the argument that people are, I believe the criticism that people are having with Killing Floor 3 is that it just doesn't have a good feel to the weapons. They just feel like airsoft guns. They don't feel like powerful guns. And I believe the reason why Tripwire made it that way is to incentivize people getting the attachments or the upgrades to make their guns more badass. So that way, as you're grinding and you're leveling up, your guns level up with you and they become badass as well. I just think that they need to do a better job in saying that and addressing it rather than having the player think that the guns suck. I think one of the biggest problems with Killing Floor 3 is that they didn't really explain all that well with how the weapon system is going to work. They said that there's going to be attachments and stuff, but they didn't say how crucial it's going to be in the gameplay, how it will affect the gunplay, and stuff like that. I think the gun should feel good, but they should incentivize upgrading your weapons. So it's going to be kind of a thin line for Tripwire to walk, making the guns feel good, but not making them overpowered to the point where the upgrade system is useless. That is something that they're going to have to figure out. But I also think they should just have fun guns. Just try to have realistic weapons. Don't have any of the sci-fi Nerf blaster guns, because ultimately it's just going to destroy the realism that they're trying to make with these games, especially if they're going for a more grungier and grittier take on Killing Floor. The guns aren't going to do it justice. Like I've said in a previous comment, they need to do better with the guns. I also think that what they're doing with the Zed movement is an improvement. However, I do believe that the Zeds do look a bit too clean. It would be nice if they looked a little bit grungier, maybe some flesh hanging from them. I think what Tripwire is trying to go for is that these are manufactured monstrosities, so they're going to be clean because they're fresh from the factory line. I'm interested to see what Killing Floor 3 is going to do with the enemy, if they're going to change the enemy, or if they're going to change how the heroes look, or how the characters look. I don't want to say heroes, because then people are going to freak out that I'm that I am accepting that the characters are heroes. I think they should also try to make the characters more grittier, just from the way they look. For example, like the medic character looks ridiculous that way. He looks like a big marshmallow. Like, just make him more grittier and realistic. Like, give him some tactical armor, some black tactical armor. Make him look like he is a soldier trying to save his comrades, not a white marshmallow trying to save somebody, you know? Okay, so I'm gonna end out this video with this comment from 123 Solomon, and they say, "It's fun to see how aspects of this game that return more towards Killing Floor 1 have upset newer Killing Floor 2 fans, and aspects that continue down the Killing Floor 2 direction have upset Killing Floor 1 OGs." What's really interesting about this comment is that Killing Floor 1 and Killing Floor 2 are different in some ways. Most notably, Killing Floor 1 has a more horror theme going on. Like, the atmosphere and the ambiance had told a better mood than Killing Floor 2. Killing Floor 2 was more action-oriented and extreme, in my opinion, whereas Killing Floor 1 made you feel the dread of fighting against the Zeds, and it just felt like a never-ending battle. You felt like you were constantly at a disadvantage. And Killing Floor 2 did have that to an extent, but it wasn't as horror-themed. It felt more arcadey, in a sense, in my honest opinion. So it is interesting that people from Killing Floor 2 and Killing Floor 1 have a bunch of disagreements from how Killing Floor 3 should be. It's just weird that Killing Floor 3 is trying to have the horror and tone that was established in Killing Floor 1, but they're doing it in a way that is kind of silly because the characters don't match with the aesthetic that they're trying to go for. And this live service trend that they're trying to chase isn't working for what they're doing. Instead of trying to stay true to what the franchise is known for the formula that it developed, they were trying to cash in on the trend. And I've said this many times in this video, I'm going to continue to say it. They should have stuck to the roots of Killing Floor. I think when I say that, a lot of people will agree that they should have just stuck with the formula. They didn't need to change that much to deliver a good Killing Floor experience. It could be possible that Killing Floor 3 can have the best of both worlds. It can have the horror and the ambiance that was created in Killing Floor 1, while also having the gunplay and the action of Killing Floor 2. But it's not at that part. It's not at that point yet. Killing Floor 3 it's not at a good state in terms of what we've seen during the beta. Killing Floor 3 needs a lot of work, and from what they showed us, it seems promising, but we still need to see what else they can do. I'm still waiting to see how the gunplay is going to look and feel. I'm not pre-ordering this game. I'm still keeping my eye on it, and I'm still reporting and making content on it and starting discussions to see what other people have to say about it. But it is interesting that fans from Killing Floor 1 and fans from Killing Floor 2 have differing opinions on what Killing Floor is, but they can all agree that Killing Floor 3 sucks. And that's one of the things that interests me the most, is that it feels like the fans of Killing Floor unanimously hates Killing Floor 3. And I can see why. Killing Floor 3 is an abomination to what Killing Floor is. It's a disgrace. They tried to go backwards on a feature that was present in the previous games, which is choosing whatever perk that you wanted. It wasn't locked behind a specialist. So it's a very interesting notion to see the evolution of Killing Floor, and then how ultimately it was destroyed with Killing Floor 3. Hopefully they can bring it back. So that was reading comments from the Killing Floor community. I love reading comments to see what people have to say about a topic, and seeing what people have to say about Killing Floor 3 is very interesting. It seems like people are on the same page about Killing Floor 3. Killing Floor 3 is not at the state that people were expecting. People expected Killing Floor 3 to be a Killing Floor game, but what they got instead was a live service hero-based shooter, which upset a lot of people, me including. So Tripwire is trying to course correct it by bringing changes to make it feel more like Killing Floor. Killing Floor 3 is set to release somewhere in 2025. We don't know when exactly it's going to release. We just know that it's going to come out in 2025. It could come out in 2026. If they need to delay the game that long in order to give the changes that we like, then so be it. I'm all for it. As long as it's a game that the fan base is wanting or expecting a Killing Floor game to be, I'm okay with it. Let me know what you guys think of this video. Do you think Killing Floor 3 has a chance to redeem itself? Do you think not? Let me know. If you enjoyed your stay at the Silent Lounge, subscribe, become a member, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.